and Stages of Life Institute right there in Longwood. And if you are making New Year's resolutions, make the Stages of Life one of your new destinations this year. Today, I'm sitting down with Dr. Klein, and we're talking about adrenal failure. When this comes upon you, you're going to think that your world is ending in such a way.
You're going to know it, won't you?
You feel it, but you don't know what's wrong with you.
Well, here's the deal. If you went ahead and you went online and looked at one of these medical sites intended for people without much education, and you looked up adrenal failure, it would tell you that this is a very rare condition. Well, the fact of the matter is, it's not rare at all. What's rare is the fact that it rarely gets diagnosed. So here's what happens. The adrenal glands are these rather unobtrusive little clear glands that sit on top of the kidneys, but they have the highest rate of blood flow of any other tissue in the body. What does this do? It means that blood flows to them very directly through the renal arteries, suprarenal and adrenal arteries, and back into the venous blood flow, thereby hitting every cell in the body with and bathing them in adrenal hormones, whatever happens to be necessary at that time, from controlling blood pressure to controlling the rate that you urinate, so on and so forth. And oddly enough, your gonadotropins, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, largely come from this organ, in particular in females. But as you get older, as it is with most everything in our body, it tends to deteriorate. Deterioration of the thyroid. As we get older, the thyroid function diminishes. As you get older, your cognitive function diminishes. As you get older, your cardiac function, renal function, lung function all diminish predictably. Not that that's necessarily inevitable, but it does seem to happen in most people because most people don't take care of themselves. Well, the adrenal glands will diminish in function as you get older, but you can rest assured that your doctor will not check this. Why? Because I wasn't trained to check it. They aren't either. And the fact of the matter is, it's not the world's easiest thing to keep an eye on. But here's what happens. As adrenal function diminishes, your complexion becomes paler, pastier, and you start having a difficult time sleeping at night. The hallmark of adrenal fatigue, which is just the lesser severity of adrenal failure, is that you can't sleep in the middle of the night. You might get to sleep okay, but at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you wake up and can't get back to bed. Okay? God knows that's probably about 30,000 people listening right now going, something, Eleanor, I think I got that. and odds are you do. And you need to check this thing out because in order to get yourself sleeping properly, you need to get this organ and the hormones that it secretes into balance. Well, what causes the adrenal gland to fail? Okay, there are a number of things can do this, but what you do to treat it is rather direct. You don't have time to fiddle around with this one. This is not something that requires a ton of money, nor is it something that requires a lot of time to fix. But the first thing that you need to do is to establish a clear and precise diagnosis, and this is only done really through blood work. There are people out there that think they can spit in a tube and that'll tell them what's wrong. Well, guess what? The spitting in the tube is for compounding pharmacists and chiropractors for the most part. Also, you'll see doctors doing it if they don't have phlebotomists in their office or if they really don't know what they're doing. The fact of the matter is that the adrenal gland has a high blood flow. It dumps its hormones into the bloodstream, and if you're going to measure them accurately, that's where the sampling has to be taken. So what are these adrenal hormones that we're worried with? Number one would be cortisol. And you're going to look at the TV and you're going to watch it and you go, my God, too much cortisol and you get fat. Well, I'll tell you what, after 10,000 blood draws for this thing, most people that come in that are overweight have a low cortisol. So if you want to believe the commercials, that's great. If you want to believe me, that's fine. But let me tell you, seeing is believing. Low cortisol leads to obesity. It also leads to inability to sleep in the middle of the night. So you have to know your cortisol level. Best taken in the morning, but if once you've done a bunch of these, you know how to interpret them throughout the day. DHEA, incredibly important hormone, most prevalent adrenal hormone in the body. Pregnenolone. This one's important for some of the people listening because it's known as the memory hormone. So when your cholesterol goes up and they give you a statin to further lower it, you need to understand why this is a really stupid idea, because cholesterol converts to pregnenolone directly, which then converts to DHEA, androstenedione, cortisol, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and 140 other adrenal hormones, some of which have wickedly important functions, and many of them are poorly understood. But one thing that is well understood is that if you don't have it, it can't be good for you. So what do? You take the statins to lower your cholesterol, you are making things worse. So people come in, they go, my God, I'm taking these statins, all my muscles ache all over, I feel like hell, the depression's worse. And it's because you're further shutting your adrenals down rather than taking the clever first step, which is to figure out why your body's not converting the cholesterol to pregnenolone. What does that? It's almost always a nutritional deficiency involving certain minerals. So what do? Okay, first thing you do is measure, determine the pathology, start replacing the most important of the hormones because you'll start feeling better faster. Then and only then can you really go about the process of trying to fix the underlying metabolic issue that leads to this disaster in the first place. So what do we got? Okay, so cortisol is necessary to keep you asleep. What else does it do? It's necessary for your immune system. What else is important for? Every cell in the body has receptors to cortisol, but for red cells, which do not. So guess what? Every disease state that you're likely to get is going to be influenced by your cortisol level. So let's think this one through. Well, I had pneumonia, so they gave me prednisone. Prednisone is like counterfeit cortisol. Okay? What else is wrong with you? Well, I've got this autoimmune disorder. What do? They give you prednisone. They gave you counterfeit cortisol instead of giving you the real thing. You might be sick because you don't have enough cortisol. So what are you going to do? Further suppress the production by taking a counterfeit bill. It doesn't make any sense in your bank account. It really doesn't make any sense to your health. So here's the deal. First things first, determine what's wrong by measurement. Blood work is very, very important. I wrote a textbook chapter on this one. It's not the world's easiest thing to get your family doc to do this because it actually takes some reading. That might be a challenge for them. Are you with me? Okay, so what else are we going to do? Then we start to replace. We change the lifestyle that leads to the suppression, and away we go. What else leads to adrenal fatigue other than the fact that you're getting older? There are medications that you can take that will shut down the secretion of a hormone called ACTH, adrenocorticotropin hormone. Well, what will do this? Adderall? Well, you're going to think, I don't take Adderall because, after all, I'm older than a teenager. But the joke is that about one person in 20 of your friends is taking Adderall or Vyvanse for adult ADD. It shuts down the secretion of ACTH, which leads to Addison's disease. It leads to the adrenal failure. What else will do it? Pain medications, for God's sake. And you know nobody who's taking pain medications. Narcotics are notorious for shutting down ACTH secretion. How long does it take for this to occur? Usually 3 to 4 weeks. Does not take long. So guess what? If you're on opiates, this is a likelihood. There are other antidepressants that'll do this. There are any number of medications that shut down ACTH, thereby leading to this issue. So if you're waking up in the middle of the night, okay, you can't stay asleep without having to take a pill to do it, we need to talk. This is something that needs to be taken care of. My New Year's resolution is to keep mine under control because, you know something? I have this issue. I treat myself. You know, I had to wait a long time to make that appointment, if you get my drift. My advice to you is to be a little faster than I was.
As somebody else who suffers from it, sometimes you feel like a zombie. I mean, a true zombie. You have no idea sometimes what you're doing.
Well, it's kind of like having a bucket full of water and the bottom of the bucket fall out. You have no energy. You just have no motivation whatsoever. This is a truly incapacitating illness, and it can lead to other types of symptoms and complaints. My favorite one is fibromyalgia. Doc, I've got fibromyalgia because the website says I do, and my doctor doesn't know what's wrong and agrees that I have fibromyalgia. But in fact, hypoadrenalism leads to fibromyalgia. You fix the adrenal issue and the fibromyalgia goes away. We're going to discuss this on another show this week. But the long and short of it is that fibromyalgia is an extraordinarily common complaint. It is not a disease. It never was a disease. When you have something that's been around and identified as long as this with no known identifiable cause, clue, it may not be a disease. It is a symptom constellation which can be caused by, and amongst other things, adrenal fatigue or adrenal failure.
Now, part of my regimen is Pregnenolone, which I get out of all places. Robin's here. I get mine at Stages of Life.
That's right. We have all sorts of nutraceuticals and everything that Dr. Klein talks about we have for sale in our health store. The office hours are Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5. You can also purchase them on our website, which is stagesoflife.net. Our phone number is 407-679-3337. We'll be happy to ship those to you if you give us a call. And we're on Facebook at Stages of Life Medical Institute.
All right, everybody, don't forget, tomorrow the doctor will be back, and we'll be talking about peripheral neuropathy, and later in the week, we'll be talking about fibromyalgia. But right now, let's move on with the show.